Welcome to episode 36 of Book Nerd Paradise, where we get to know an author as they tell us one of their favorite quotes, read from their work, pose a trivia question, and give away a book or two. Hi, I'm LRW Lee, author of the Andy Smithson Epic Fantasy Adventure Series. Today, I thought I'd do something a little different. So rather than just showing you the books, I thought I would begin to read the first part of the prequel, which is Power of the Air's Passion. So, and I will, in subsequent episodes, continue to read and share with you so that you can get a feel for the books and decide if you'd like to hear more. So, Power of the Air's Passion, I'm just going to read the beginning of it, at least for this episode. How it all began. The instant Imogenia died, two shimmering figures dressed in official-looking monochrome uniforms appeared at her side, making her jump. "Oh, you scared me." "Pardon us, miss. That was not our intention," replied the shortish one, removing his hat. "We are crossover collectors here to escort you to the terminal," the taller of the two droned in a nasally tone. "Please come with us, princess," instructed the first, raising his arm to direct. "Wait, what's a crossover collector?" "We are agents dispatched to escort the newly crossed over." "Newly crossed over? What are you talking about?" "They'll explain everything at our destination," replied the taller spirit. "Now, if you'll come with us." Imogenia hovered above the slowly fading scene. Kaysen, her younger brother, stood looking at the still form lying on the floor. The corners of his mouth started to turn up in a smile, and his eyes narrowed in contempt. Her brain whirled, struggling to put the pieces together. "Please," the smaller figure repeated. Imogenia looked down and noticed the yellow dress she had been wearing was now silvery white, like the clothing of the men before her. Realization pounced, dug in its claws, and the terrible truth tore into her. "Kaysen killed me! I can't believe he killed me! Why, that little—" Indignation sparked anger, which rapidly morphed into fury. "Princess, we need to go," the larger agent urged. "Oh, we'll go all right, but you mark my words, that rat has not heard the end of this. He will pay," Imogenia vowed. So we'll leave it at that for right now. So tune in next week and you'll hear more. So on to the show. Today we welcome YA fantasy author Trish Marie Dawson as our guest. Trish was born and raised in San Diego, California, where she lives with her family and pets today. She began writing short stories and poetry in high school after an obsession with Stephen King's The Stand. She says after over 15 years of crazy dreams and an overactive imagination, she began her first book, I Hope You Find Me, in December of 2011. It was then that her first fantasy series was born. When she's not writing, researching, editing, or formatting, she's homeschooling her children, reading during her free time, and enjoying the Southern California sun. She's an animal lover and regularly saves mice, lizards, and birds from her 3 rescue dogs. They all share the house with a rescue cat who is part dog and part old man, she says. Please join me in welcoming Trish Marie Dawson.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely, it's great to see you.
Good to see you too.
So Trish, you'll be reading from your YA fantasy novel, Dying to Forget, which is book 1 in the Station series. So that we can get a feel for the series and the book, would you briefly give us, you summarize the story arc, if you would?
This series is a 3-book part with 3 additional novelettes, and it follows the anti-heroine Piper Willow after she dies shortly after her 18th birthday, graduating high school. The story has some intense subject matter because there's some talk about suicide and self-harm. But the overall experience of it for readers, I really want them to take away is hope and that everybody deserves a second chance. And that's basically what the station ends up being for Piper Willow. She wakes up in the afterlife after dying and realizes that she didn't make it to heaven or hell when she passed away, and that she has a choice there. She can decide to stay and become a volunteer and go back to Earth in the subconscious of somebody who is suicidal or depressed and help them get through it. Or she can move on and there is nobody there that can tell her what happens after she moves on. But you take your pain and you take your sorrow and all the reasons why you died follow you. So obviously most people choose to stay and become a volunteer. The entire series is really about Piper discovering who she is and learning from her mistakes that she made while she was living, and making new friends. So it's I don't want people to panic when they hear what the story is about, because it is really for young adults, and we do have a problem, especially in the United States, with the suicide rates for our teens. Even though the book wasn't written specifically to help people, it has. So it's been really neat as an author for me to experience that.
So you've selected a favorite quote to share with our listeners. What is it, and why is it a favorite?
I believe that we all learn from our mistakes as long as we try to. And I think that there is no such thing as failure if you pick yourself up and you try again. So one of my favorite quotes is by Albert Einstein, and it's you never fail until you stop trying. And I thought that kind of fit with this series, because when you talk about suicide in general, that is the ultimate failure in some people's eyes. You know, you're giving up completely. But in the story, in the station, these people, some of them have a second chance. And so it just kind of fit with the concept that we're talking about today.
You're giving away a book. What book are you giving away?
I'm going to give away the copy of the first book right here, Dying to Forget. I can give that to anybody here in the US or send it to the UK as well, and sign it for you too.
Excellent. Awesome. All right. So thank you for that. That's great. So to enter to win, in the comments section on YouTube, briefly share, if you would, why you love YA literature. Normally, I just leave it open to, share any comment about the show, but I'm interested to find out why you as a viewer, why you love YA literature. I mean, I know why I love it, but I'm very interested to hear what all of you have to say. Tell me about that, and then please begin to leave your either Twitter or Facebook contacts, because sometimes it's hard to get a hold of the winner on YouTube. So if you would do that, that would be awesome as well. So Trish, you'll be reading from your novel, Dying to Forget, book 1 in the Station series. Would you briefly set up the portion you'll be reading from and then share your story with us?
So I'm going to be reading from it's close to the beginning of the book, and it is when after Piper dies and she wakes up not expecting to be where she is. So it's kind of an intro to the station, and her confusion because she doesn't understand what's happening, and her first meeting with her intake specialist, who is a reader favorite, Niles Abbott. So I thought it would be a great way to kind of introduce her story. This is chapter 3. I groan at the bright light behind my closed eyes, hoping that if I squeeze my lids tight enough, the light won't get through. It doesn't work. What am I lying on? I'm flat on my back on something hard and cold. Where am I? Oh no, it didn't work. I'm in the hospital. Crap. With that thought, my eyes fly wide open and I bolt upright. Disoriented from the blinding glow around me, I almost fall off a bench. Steadying myself, gripping the edge of the cool marble surface, as I swing my naked legs slowly around until my feet touch the ground, but jerk them upwards immediately, surprised by how cold the floor is. Everywhere I look, it's the same white light. I can't tell if I'm inside or outside, and my stomach clenches with anxiety. Hello? I whisper at first. The sound of my small voice echoes softly around me, but no one responds. I'm hesitant to place my bare feet on the ground again, which oddly feels like glass, but I do, and though it's still cold, the initial shock wears off quickly. Slowly and cautiously, I stand up and my hair cascades around my shoulders, loose, clean, and smelling like grapefruit. I reach up to touch it and run my hand along the smooth strands. When I went to bed, my hair was not this clean. What's going on? Hello? Is anyone there? After hearing no response, I step away from the hard bench and turn in a semicircle. Nothing to see but the dazzling whiteness. I can't tell where the top meets the bottom of the room, if it is a room I'm standing in. When I reach up to touch my arm unconsciously, I gasp as I realize not only are my bandages gone, but my cuts are healed. I hold my forearm up to my face and rub my hand along my skin, which is now soft and smooth, scar-free. What the hell? This is when I start to panic. Tears build up in my eyes, and I open my mouth to scream, but a gentle male voice behind me startles me into silence. Piper Willow? I whirl around to see a middle-aged man with gray hair smiling politely. The first thing I notice is his outdated clothing. He's wearing a navy argyle sweater vest with long-sleeved white shirt rolled up to his elbows and pleated brown trousers with matching loafers. I gape at him, sure that I don't know him, while he nods sympathetically at me. He's holding a metal clipboard, and he taps one of his fingers down on it before speaking again. You are Piper Willow, yes? He raises one of his bushy eyebrows at me. Yeah? I tug at the bottom hem of my long tank top, wishing I was wearing more than my pajamas. I feel exposed and naked standing before this stranger. He seems to relax a bit after I answer, and he thrusts a hand out in front of him for me to shake. I take it weakly, letting him pump my arm twice. Piper, my name is Niles Abbott, and I need you to come with me, please. He smiles a gentle smile again, and even though I don't know him, I feel safe. My feet make soft sounds on the cold, glassy surface of the ground as I follow the strange man through the blinding light. How he can see where he's going, I have no idea. So I stay close behind him, afraid that if he gets too far ahead of me, I'll lose sight of him. Excuse me, Mr. Abbott, but where are we? I'll explain everything to you, dear, just as soon as we reach the station. His answer attempts to be reassuring. His patient voice is calm and matter of fact, but I'm not comforted. Not in the least. What station? We aren't in the hospital? Where's my dad? My last question comes out barely above a whisper as I struggle not to cry. Niles startles me as he turns around and smiles, obviously aware of information I don't have yet. No, Piper, this isn't the hospital, and your father's at home. He's fine. Please follow me. He turns away again and continues on through the light. I hang my head, staring at my bare feet as we walk. Even though my cuts are gone, I keep rubbing my arm. It's soothing. I almost bump into Niles when he stops abruptly. We're here, he says softly. When I look up, I see a long and rusty metal gate, entwined with flowering vines and two giant redwood trees standing at each end like towering guards. I stare at the massive trunks in awe. I've never seen a tree so tall before. The redwoods reach up so high that the tops dissolve into the surrounding light. Niles steps aside and gestures for me to approach the gate. Ladies first, he smiles. I blush in embarrassment as I pass him and step up to the large gate with trepidation. I have no idea how to open it, but after I place my hands on the metal, it glides easily to the side. I push harder until there's enough room for both me and Niles to squeeze through, grinning wildly at him as if I've discovered the cure to cancer, while he nods at me in approval. After he steps in behind me, I tug on the gate to close it. It easily slides back into place with a satisfying clank. The blinding light's muted but not gone. As I turn around, I find myself in a courtyard of sorts. I can't see the sky, but I assume that we are outside. There are several sterile-looking buildings lined up in a curved row facing us, and I gape at them while reading simple block letters printed above the doors. Admissions is the largest building, and it sits just in front of us. To the right is a place called the training department, and next to that is a much smaller building labeled for staff only. On the other side of the admissions building is an equally impressive structure, consignment, according to the sign. The smaller building sits on the far end, and I think I see children running around inside it. What is this place? I so badly want answers. I can't see beyond the buildings. There just seems to be a wall of white behind them. Where am I? I asked Niles, still sweeping my eyes across the buildings and the people moving in and out of them. And there are a lot of people, hundreds, I think, maybe even more. Piper, this is the station. I'm your intake specialist. Intake specialist? I whisper, not understanding. He gestures me to walk beside him, and I match his slow pace as we stroll around an immense water fountain that takes up a good amount of space between the gate and the admissions department building. Despite its significant size, the design is simple. It's the blue tile that I find so attractive. I gaze at the rim, wide enough to use as a seat, and down beside the fountain, following the turquoise tile that rolls in a wave pattern. It's breathtaking, and for a moment I forget completely that Niles is talking to me. Piper, are you listening? It's important that you hear me now. His voice is gentle, not at all authoritative, and I nod embarrassed. Let's sit down, shall we? He points at a marble bench, very much like the one I woke on. Is this place real? I ask as we sit down. The marble feels cool against the back of my thighs. Of course it is, he laughs softly, before his expression turns serious. Piper, what is the last thing you remember? Remember? I scrunch my face together as I struggle to remember something, anything. My memories feel fuzzy and far away at first, but slowly, as if a fog lifts from my mind, I begin to see my bedroom. The pale purple walls that hadn't been painted since I was 14 come into focus, and my bedspread. I see the yellow quilt with its pink border, and myself lying motionless in my bed. I remember my bedroom, I say quietly, as a feeling of dread spreads through my body. Niles's full head of gray hair moves slowly with an empathic nod. Yes, your bedroom. He pauses to look up at me before taking my hand into his. It's where you died, dear.
So our guest author last week, YA fantasy author Liz Long, posed a trivia question for us.
So my trivia question had to do with Hogwarts and the Harry Potter wizarding world. Who is the charms professor at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry? The answer, as it turns out, you probably already know, is Professor Flitwick.
All right, so Trish, you have a trivia question for our listeners. What is it?
I do. One of my favorite books is To Kill a Mockingbird. So I thought, I'll pull something from a book that most everybody has read, at least in school. And my trivia question is, who taught Scout how to write?
Ooh, that's a great question. Yes.
You might have to think about it a little bit.
If you don't know the answer, or even if you do, be sure that you subscribe to this YouTube channel so that you find out what the answer is next episode. All right, very good. Are there any final thoughts you'd like to leave with our listeners?
I would. First of all, thank you for having me here today. This has been really fun. And I did want to point out, some people might read the synopsis for this book and think, ooh, that sounds depressing. I don't want to read that. But and it does have some serious subject matter in it. There is suicide. There is some self-harm. There is a recall of a rape. And though it's not graphic in nature, it's really meant to portray the reality that some of our youth face today. And when I wrote this book, I should kind of give, I should mention, it was actually kind of a form of therapy for myself. I was getting over losing my aunt, Teresa, to suicide. And I was having really strange dreams, and I was walking around in life, just anytime something would happen, I kept hearing her voice in my head. And one day, I had this dream about a girl who woke up in this place, and she didn't know where she was, and she had died, and then she was offered the chance to go back and help people, and the book was born. So in a lot of ways, I kind of went through what some of her family members, I guess, would go through. And so I want people that read it to understand it's not meant to glorify suicide in any way. It's really meant to say, you know what, we're all humans. We all make mistakes. And in Piper's world, there's a chance for, redemption. And I believe that us, humanity and nature, we have that possibility as well. That it's a way for parents also to talk to their teens. I've had a lot of moms write me or send me messages, I came across this ebook for free, and I thought, well, I'll read that, and now I'm going to make my 16-year-old daughter read it too. Because how do you bring up self-harm and cutting with your teenagers? But it will touch people in different ways, I'm sure. And final note is, I do want to let people know that it's okay to be depressed, and mental health illness should be talked about. It should not be kept in the closet. So if anybody needs to talk, they can call 1-800-273-TALK, or they can go to the Lifeline Crisis Chat line online, just to know that we're not alone. Each of us are connected. We all matter. And every single one of us, we have the potential to help each other. So if anybody's interested in reading the series, the ebook is free on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and iTunes. You can go to my website, which is writer.trishmariedawson.com, and you can find out where all of my books are available.
Thank you so much for those words. Yes.
You're welcome.
To be able to be an advocate, if you will, for helping particularly teens get through, potentially suicidal feelings or thoughts. Hopefully all of you who are listening have enjoyed getting to know Trish Marie Dawson just a little. Certainly it sounds like there's a lot of meat that one can sink their teeth into if you're interested in knowing more. So that's great. So I'm LRW Lee, author of the Andy Smithson Epic Fantasy Adventure Series. Please feel free to avail yourself of the free prequel and book 1, the ebooks in the series, which are available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Google Play. Click the button to subscribe to the Book Nerd Paradise YouTube channel so you don't miss upcoming authors, giveaways, and answers to trivia questions. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I look forward to seeing you next Monday.